On August 9th, 1990, an 8-year-old little girl was in bed sleeping with her mom. Her mother was awakened by the kicks of her daughter, and she turned to her and says, "You're kicking me in your sleep and I have to work in the morning. Would you mind sleeping in your room tonight?" Little did she know that this would be the worst night of the little girl's life. This is the case of
Jennifer Schuett.
You ever heard the name Jennifer Schuett? Yes. Did you ever have occasion to come in contact with her? Yes. Tell me about that. No.
On an early August morning in 1990, 8-year-old Jennifer Schuett was abducted from the bedroom of her ground floor Texas apartment, sexually assaulted, and with her throat cut from ear to ear, unable to cry out or even speak because her vocal cords were damaged.
Left to die in an overgrown field.
This morning, Jennifer's mother entered the bedroom and found the bedroom window open and her daughter gone.
She had fallen asleep while reading some books, and the next thing she remembered was waking up in the arms of a man she had never seen. He was running down the sidewalk with her in his arms, and when she tried to scream for help, he covered her mouth and nose. He soon got to his car, put her on his lap, and held her there while he drove. He told her he was an undercover police officer and that everything was going to be okay. She wanted to believe him, but knew something was really wrong. Jennifer soon realized that she had been kidnapped and was afraid of what would happen next. He pulled into the parking lot of her elementary school. He told her to watch the moon and that when it changed colors, her mother would be pulling in to pick her up. She anxiously waited for her mother, but she never came. He then told her that her mom won't be coming. He then started the car and drove to a nearby dead-end gravel road and pulled off into an overgrown field. We can only imagine how scared Jennifer must have been. She was only 8 years old. No one should go through such horror, let alone an 8-year-old girl. He then held a knife to her throat and said,
"Am I scaring you, little girl? Am I scaring you?"
What type of monster does this? She blacked out as he choked her and tried to break her neck. When she woke up, he was dragging her by her ankles. He then dropped her legs, left her in the overgrown field, got in his car and drove away. As the night turned into daylight, she looked up and could see treetops and clouds, but due to her severe wounds, she could not move. She would go in and out of consciousness and would be in disbelief that she had not died yet. She was so close to help but could not yell for help as she would see cars drive by. She was feeling at peace
with what she thought would be the inevitable.
I would try so hard to lift my head.
It was almost dark again, but luckily there were children playing tag on the field and one of them tripped over her foot, and that is how she was found.
Dickinson Police Department at that time was a very, very small agency.
I remember going unconscious and then waking up to a police officer kneeling down beside me saying, "You've been found, you're gonna be okay, just please stay with me, please stay with me." And I remember being put into the life flight helicopter.
When the cops found her, they did not know whether she was alive or dead. She was airlifted and the helicopter rushed her to the hospital. She was such in bad shape that the officer thought it was going to be a murder case. She was covered with ant bites and scratches on her back. She couldn't make any sounds because of the injury she had to her neck. They tried to comfort her and reassured her that nobody was going to hurt her there. Jennifer's laceration went through her trachea. Fortunately, it didn't involve any major vessels. She had some trauma to her face,
and there was some trauma from being sexually assaulted.
Jennifer was afraid of her male doctors and even kicking one in the stomach, which is understandable considering what she had went through. Dickinson, Texas is a small community and nothing like this had ever happened.
An officer canvassing the area had discovered clothing in a ditch, quarter of a mile, maybe less, from the scene. We determined that clothing was that of Jennifer and that of the suspect.
The police brought in a sketch artist to help identify the suspect. And since Jennifer couldn't speak, the sketch artist had her look through books with different types of eyes, mouths, nose, and so on. Imagine being 8 years old, traumatized, medicated, and not being able to speak. Even though Jennifer was going through all of this horror, she was still able to come up with a sketch by describing her attacker through notes. When the sketch artist showed her the drawing,
Jennifer shook her head yes.
the sketch artist signed it and dated it. Jennifer physically recovered and started school on time. The school had police present and the whole community was on edge. No one knew
Who the attacker was.
She continued her education, even attending college once she graduated from high school.
And then eventually I was a children's librarian at a local public library. Jonathan has been there for me through most of my adult journey dealing with my case. So he has been my biggest cheerleader.
"18 years later, she received a phone call from Detective Tim Cromie, and he advised her that he would be taking over the case and that he wanted to meet with her. When they met, it didn't go the way that the detective thought it would go.
I was so frustrated. I thought, here we are, 18 years later, what's this guy gonna do?
He told her that he will do whatever he could do in his power until the end of his career to get her some answers. This was one sentence
That changed her life.
Violent crime I've investigated where the victim survived. It was a unique aspect of having Jennifer there to help with certain aspects of the case that otherwise we had never known.
He teamed up with FBI Special Agent Richard Renison, and they took Jennifer's t-shirt, underwear, and the suspect's underwear and t-shirt that they had in evidence and sent it to the FBI lab in Quantico, Virginia.
I really wanted to be a part of the solving of my own case. I wanted to help because I was the only living witness. And I wanted to go to trial and see this through to the end. I wanted to be able to face the person that wanted to silence me and show them that I came out victorious.
Being that this was an 18-year-old case, they knew this wasn't going to be a priority at the FBI labs.
It took well over a year to get the results of the DNA test back. It was 2:30 in the morning. My phone rings, and it's the DNA lab. The DNA examiner told me we got a hit.
The lab said the DNA matched a man named Dennis Earl Bradford. The agent was excited to get a match, but never heard of his name, nor was he on any of the reports. Dennis Earl Bradford was convicted in 1997 for kidnapping. He sexually assaulted a woman that he met at a local bar. he was sent to prison and his DNA was put into the national database. The agents finally made a connection from the notes Jennifer wrote while at the hospital 19 years prior. She wrote,
He said his name was Dennis.
They contacted the driver's license bureau in Texas and they were able to obtain a photograph from his driver's license. When they saw the photograph, they were floored. The sketch that Jennifer had described was dead accurate to the photograph.
I've never seen a composite drawing so close.
This is the window. It's crazy. And where he lived was right at that water tower. Yeah.
They contacted the district attorney's office and they authorized the charge of
Attempted capital murder.
They met with the North Little Rock Police Department and they were able to pull him over on a traffic stop and arrested him on a warrant.
When they called me that morning and told me that they really arrested this person, Dennis Earl Bradford, it was the most surreal moment of my life. Meant everything to me.
It's Bradford. Morning, sir. I'm Richard Grayson. How you doing? You ever heard the name Jennifer Schuett? Yes.
It was a long interview as Bradford gave details about that night. He told them that he did not know why he pulled up to those apartments. Everything that Jennifer had remembered happening was exactly the same story that Bradford gave. Jennifer said at a press conference that she was not a victim, she was victorious.
Bradford finally confessed.
There's two sides to every story. She was innocent, and I was a sick, deranged, beat up little fuck. Okay, forgive me, Mama. I pulled that little girl out of that window, and I put her in my car. And she was freaking out, and I told her, please just don't worry, it'll be all right. I took that little girl out there and I raped her, and I cut her throat.
Up until now, Bradford thought that Jennifer was dead. When the agents told him that she was alive,
He completely broke down.
If you were to see her, I think you would be extremely proud of her. I really do. Oh, thank you. She's alive. She's alive. She's alive. She's alive. You want me to tell you she's alive?
His attorney said he's gonna plead guilty, pick a day. So we were like, wow, how great would it be to pick August 10th?
unfortunately, that day didn't come. Bradford committed suicide
while in custody.
On the day that the trial was set for, she went to his grave and read her victim impact statement.
Dennis Bradford, I waited 19 years, 2 months, and 3 days to find out your last name and for you to be caught.
She wanted to start a family, but due to the brutal sexual assault that happened, she was told she would not be able to conceive. But fortunately, a doctor came out and said that he can help her. 2 years later, they had a daughter, then followed by a son. Today, she continues her work as a victim advocate.
You're the lucky duck! Have not one but 2 beautiful, healthy children at the end of all of this. They're really my happy ending.
I'm not a victim, but instead victorious.